Okay, can you hear me now? Somebody tell me. Good morning. Naomi, can you hear me? Yay, okay. We had one false start just now. The audio was doing, I guess, the same thing it was doing for Bethany the other day. Okay, if everybody can hear me, great. Good morning, everyone. Yay, welcome to Coffee with a Pastor, episode 46. Today, the pastor is me. It is myself. I am here not with coffee because I already drank 2 cups of coffee and I need more coffee. But instead, I am drinking a green smoothie made of greens, cucumber, apples, grapes, banana, in an effort to nourish myself with something other than caffeine in this moment, in which I did not sleep well. That's my strategy for the day. Good morning. Good morning. Tori, Clark, Lee. Hello, Lee. I don't know you, but good morning. Joyce, hi. And Aurelia's here, and Naomi's here, and Tammy. Good morning, everyone. So glad for you all to be present with me here for a moment. A few moments. Yes, it is yum. It's a yum smoothie. You should try it. A couple of years back, I invested in a refurbished Vitamix. I'm like a smoothie holic. I drink a smoothie every single day, just about. And I invested in a refurbished Vitamix blender, and it's a game changer. Vitamix will change your life, especially if you're a diehard smoothie person. They are not exaggerating when the hype around the Vitamix blender is real. And my best bet for you is to get a refurbished one because they're a lot cheaper. Who else is popping on? Yes, a refurbished one. My deal. It was such a great deal. So we woke up this morning to news of rioting in Minneapolis. And Tammy, oh yeah, crock pots. I'm actually going to upgrade to an Instapot at some point. I haven't done it yet, but I'm going to. Mary's having some pancakes and coffee. Good. Oh my gosh, I have to see David's video about his beloved Vitamix. I feel like I could write a litany or a poem, an ode to my Vitamix. It is the single most heavily used appliance in my kitchen, with the exception of the coffee pot. So that's a lighthearted thing, but we did wake up to news of rioting in Minneapolis today. And Tammy, you posted on your feed this morning something that I think is worth reading aloud. You posted a quote from Dr. King. Where did it go? Dr. King had some thoughts about riots, and he said, oh, let me get to it, the whole quote. That a riot is the language of the unheard. So, oh, okay, here it is. A riot is the language of the unheard. And what is it that America has failed to hear? It has failed to hear that the plight of the Negro poor has worsened over the last few years. It has failed to hear that the promises of freedom and justice have not been met. And it has failed to hear that large segments of white society are more concerned about tranquility and the status quo than about justice, equality, and humanity. And it seems to me that those words from Dr. King are very applicable this morning. And of course, we as a community have an ability to hold in tension both our empathy for the very deep and very legitimate frustration, anger, of the unheard, while we also hold tightly to the nonviolent way of Christ. And we hold that in tension and without judgment, and with a great deal of empathy and a great deal of love for the people who are making themselves heard in this way, even though, of course, we don't want to condone violence, but we are able to see what's happening. And so this morning I'm thinking about that, and I'm thinking about grit. I linked up a sermon that I preached last summer in July, entitled Humility, Grit, and Trust, and the sermon is based on John 11. And trigger warning, I do tell a story in that sermon about a woman I know and grew up with who lost her 2 sons. So if you're not in a place right now where you can't handle emotionally a story of loss like that, I steer clear of it for now, or as long as you need to, forever if you need to. But if you can't, it's not a graphic story by any means, and in fact, it's a story of hope. But I understand that a lot of us are feeling raw. Nevertheless, I think that message of humility, grit, and trust that came for me out of John 11 is applicable right now and can help us. And I'm thinking about grit, and I say some of this in the sermon, but so grit it's a psychological term. What happened to my notes? They fell away. Where'd they go? No matter. Okay, so grit is a psychological term that refers to qualities of passion and persistence for very long-term goals, okay? Passion and persistence, thank you, Tori, for very long-term goals. And there is a psychologist and researcher named Dr. Angela Duckworth who studies grit. And she says, grit is having stamina. Grit is sticking with your future day in, day out, not just for the week, not just for the month, but for years, and working really hard to make that future a reality. And so psychologists have come up with 5 main characteristics of grit. And I want to just read them to us right now, because it strikes me that right now, in this moment where we need to both hold in tension multiple things, both empathy and love and compassion, both alongside grief and lament, alongside all of the anti-racism work that we must do collectively. It strikes me that we would do well to attend to our own qualities of grit. I observe that my brothers and sisters of color, you who are folks of color, have been exhibiting qualities of grit for centuries, just by surviving in this white supremacist society. And as we look at all the anti-racism work that has to be done, we know that it's not a short road and it's not a simple path. Anti-racism work is a narrow path, and it's only narrow, not because you're not welcome on it, but it's narrow because most people don't choose to do it. Most people don't choose to walk it. It's always been my interpretation of Jesus's narrow path language, that it's not narrow because you're not invited. It's narrow because most people just don't choose to walk the narrow path. if more people got on it, we would widen it. We'd trample it wider. So that's part of our goal, is to trample that path, the path of doing anti-racism work both internally in our own selves and collectively. But I think this is going to take grit from us. I think it's going to take passion and perseverance and stick-with-itness for a long haul, because it's nuanced and it's multi-layered and it requires humility, particularly from us who are white. It requires self-reflection, and it requires connectedness to a goal that is just greater than ourselves, which is the divine love that we are working to embody. And I think that's another thing that I say a lot. If Matt was talking the other day, remember, about like, what's your one sermon? And I think if I have one sermon, it could be that what we're here to do is learn to embody love, just as Christ embodied love. So that's not easy work. So grit. So I just want to tell you what psychologists say. I have it pulled up on my computer. What do psychologists say are qualities of grit? Yeah, we don't peak in this work. It's a lifelong marathon. So the first quality of grit is courage. We need courage. We need courage both to attend to grief and lament and to do hard work. So courage is not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. The qualities of courageous people include patience, the ability to believe the unbelievable, okay? The ability for us to envision a future that is not a white supremacist society, that is a just society, that is full of people who are the embodiment of love. That's part of our courage, and the guts to say no. They're not afraid of taking an unpopular stand, nor of asking for help. Qualities of courage. They are able to forgive and move on quickly, but also to stay the course when everyone else has abandoned ship. Second quality of grit is conscientiousness. This is the personality trait of being thorough, careful, or vigilant. I will link to this in the comments once I'm done. Implies a desire to do a task well. Conscientious people are efficient and organized, not resting until the job is done and done right. And generally, the conscientious have strong moral principles and we know that, sorry, I didn't plan to use my phone. Just when I opened up my computer, it started doing an update. I didn't tell it to do an update, it just started doing it, and then it was like a half-hour update. So I'm using my phone. Okay, third quality of grit. Perseverance. Perseverance. One of the distinctions between someone who succeeds and someone who's just spending a lot of time doing something is practice must have a purpose. That's where long-term goals come in. Perseverance is synonymous with pain and suffering, but those with true grit are able to flip their perspective and view struggle as a doorway to pleasure, to a good life, to a good society. Fourth quality of grit, resilience. In one word, resilience is toughness. Now, I think we need to cultivate resilience here. And my opinion is part of how we do that is by spiritual practice. Toughness, the capacity to recover quickly from difficulties. In general, those who are optimistic tend to show greater resilience. And I take that to mean people who are connected to hope, who are connected to that ability to imagine the future as something better and different and good and encompassing the highest good of all. And lastly, grit involves passion. Passion creates excellence when mediocrity will do. Passionate people have a deep sense of purpose and are often selfless in their actions. They also know themselves. They have a clear sense of their values and beliefs and live by them. So if we have passion for this radically inclusive kingdom community of God that reverberates to all of our policies and all of our practices and all of our relationships, and this ethos of love that we get to become passionate about, and we get to practice, and we get to do with a great deal of intention as we're connected to that hope and that vision for the future. Passionate people don't let anything stop them. They have a will to find a way attitude, and they don't accept no for an answer. By the same token, they are also enthusiastic about the success of others, and they take responsibility for their lives, but they're not afraid to ask for support. So, if these 5 things constitute grit: courage, conscientiousness, perseverance, and resilience, and passion. That, I think, would be my prayer for our community today, and for all of the communities that stand alongside of us. That we would cultivate and develop grit. That we can stick with this work for the long haul, even when we encounter setbacks, and hold it, even when we can hold in tension the setbacks. We can hold in tension the tragedies that we encounter along the way, but we're still committed. We're still showing up, and we're still pushing through to the kingdom community that we believe that Christ began to imagine here on earth, and that we are taking up his mission of imagining that and embodying it on the earth, which is the radically loving, radically inclusive, radically just kingdom, the siblinghood of humanity. So, I think that grit is not an absence of weakness. I think within grit, we embrace our weakness too. I think that grit knows that in our weakness, God is made most powerful. So that's what I wanted to say. Let me just read through some comments here. I think a lot of stuff is being said, but let's see. Yeah, it's not enough to be non-racist. There's no such thing. There's no such thing as not racist. It doesn't exist. There's racist and there's anti-racist. And that's one of the lessons that I learned from Dr. Ibram X. Kendi in his book, How to Be an Anti-Racist. That was a really helpful book for me. Oh yeah, equality, we want our kids. We want to instill in our kids. Same. Yeah, we are teaching that. We have to tell our kids every day, we can do hard things. And that's part of grit. That's probably a great motto. Grit's great motto is, I feel like Glennon Doyle said that first, but I could be wrong about that. She says we can do hard things. She's so influential. Yeah. All right, friends. I really, that's my prayer for us today, is that we will be gritty. We'll be people of grit. All right, I love you all. We'll see you tomorrow.